Now, this is a sensitive topic, but I don't give a shit. Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm going to write that. And you're all going to hate me. I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourselves because, no, I don't think what happened was funny, but just how it happened. Okay. So let me tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. My dad was an abusive man, but he would call himself a Rhodes Scholar. He got straight A's in school, but I think he got D's and F's in high school. Okay, but he got straight A's in college when he returned to college in his 40s and 50s. And he had history books, books about the Civil War, books about ancient Egypt, books about ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, books about the American Revolution, George Washington crossing the Delaware. He had books about things. He had collected guns, collected cameras, brownies, turn of the century cameras. This man lived in his own world and a lot of times lived in his own bullshit. Now, my second sister, who would be 53 today, she was the kind of person that didn't approve of the way my dad was and would say, go fuck yourself or fuck you or stick the finger out at him. And she'd get a good pop in the teeth. You know, he would set her straight. Okay. My dad did not like having kids, but you're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have kids when you're 21. No, you're not. If you don't feel it, don't do it. This is why I tell you all, don't get married if you don't feel like it. Okay. I didn't. I'm okay with that. So my second sister, her 18th birthday was in 1987, which was her high school graduation. And my dad, my mom, and my brother Sebastian was in the hospital sick. So I went. So four of us went to my sister Marlo's graduation for high school. This was an all-girls school. And I don't know what happened. I guess my sister was a bitch, a cunt, whatever. She wasn't very nice to my dad. And my dad drank. My dad drank. My Rhodes Scholar of a dad drank at my sister's graduation ceremony. And he collapsed and fell over the table like a fucking inbred idiot. Like a pinche cabron in East LA. Like a wetback, okay? Like a dumb wetback, my dad fell over. Here was this man who could speak eloquently and use big words and write with a dip pen and ink and listen to classical music, but he would resort to doing dumb things. So he was drunk and he was going to drive us home on the freeway, take on the 5 freeway going back home to East LA from the all-girls school, the private school. So from the graduation ceremony back home, he was going to drive drunk. My mom cried. And my dad compromised and decided to go ahead and sit in the passenger seat. My mom drove us home. And my dad would yell, you motherfucking shit. Your daughter's a piece of shit. We're fucking pissed off. Fuck this shit. You know what? That was the time I told this story before. That was the time I was really scared for my life. I thought I was going to die that night at 9 years old. Now, a couple of other stories that involved driving badly or driving drunk included my grandmother driving and hitting an Asian dude, and he threatened to sue her for everything, and my dad took over the apartment housing that my grandmother once had custody of. My grandmother was a landlord, and after the car accident, my dad became the landlord, and my grandmother just lived there. Then there was another car accident. I don't know if alcohol was involved, but my grandmother wasn't paying attention to her driving. And she turned onto a parking lot of a Pick and Save or Newberry's or Gemco, one of those stores that's not around anymore. That was around during the 80s. She turned left. Another car hit the passenger side hard. And Bertha was, I guess, supposedly a friend of hers, but not really. I mean, my grandmother used her and abused her. Didn't really think much of her. But Bertha seemed like a nice person. Bertha died in General Hospital. Anybody who's ever been to General Hospital before the Northrop earthquake, you know how bad that place looked. It looked like a dungeon. It was one of the worst cater to the poor hospitals ever run. It was a shit pit. I was always afraid to go on those elevators, or the cables would snap and I would die. So, and when I saw the accident, I didn't see the accident, but I witnessed that car after the accident when it was in the impound lot at a salvage yard. It looked like the Hulk punched in the side of that passenger door. There was no way anybody could survive. And anyone at Bertha's age, now my grandmother at the time, I don't know how old she was with the first accident, but the second one, she was in her, I'm going to say, she was in her mid 70s, I think. 74, I think. Early 70s. And Bertha was close to 70, if not older. She died in that hospital, that horrid hospital. So I think about my grandmother driving badly. I think about my dad almost driving badly. Who knows if he ever drove drunk? It's possible he did. Probable. There was alcohol in the marriage. Now, Anne Heche, to me, I mean, I don't care. You want to be lesbian, you want to be straight. Nothing is a laughing matter when it comes to LGBTQ. What I do find a laughing matter is when someone thinks they're above everything else and drives drunk. Now, you may like Anne Heche's work. You may like Anne Heche's movies. You may like Anne's TV shows or web series or whatever she's done. I don't do the homework, okay? I looked up the Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia says that she's done this twice. The first time she got into an accident, and the second time she crashed into that woman's house and almost killed her animals, I think. I'm not sure. She was fear of her life. That woman who was in the least controversial spot in her life, in her own home, and Anne Heche crashed into her home, intoxicated, under the influence. Now, it's possible she had to take medications. I don't know how old she was. I think she was in her 70s when she died. But obviously, you don't mix alcohol with any medications. Now, for those of you who have a problem with me talking about this, who say, well, maybe it's a disease, and maybe that's why she drove like it's like kleptomaniac, and you can't help stealing things, and you can't help driving drunk. Even if that were true, when my grandmother got Bertha killed, however, by vehicular manslaughter, the judge ordered her driver's license to be revoked indefinitely. That means my grandmother could not drive anymore. The first time they should have taken her license away. I don't care how famous or how unfamous Anne Heche was. They should have taken her license away. If they could prove that a disease made her want to drive drunk and she couldn't help it, you take away the driver's license. You take away her ability to drive a car. You don't let her drive a car. You don't shrug your shoulders and say, oh, that's nothing. It'll pass. She'll get over it. She'll do better. You don't well wish. Beggars would ride if wishes were horses. This is not acceptable. So this is the kind of thing I do not feel bad for her. I feel worse for the woman who was almost killed by that car. Yeah, there's been a lot of strange deaths. When Casey Kasem died, his wife didn't even give a shit. She broadcasted his voice in front of people. I almost teared up when I heard Casey Kasem wail on a tape recorder that sounded almost the opposite of what I was so used to growing up as a child. That the family had to fight to bury his, but they couldn't even bury him properly. They wanted to say goodbye. They barely got a chance to say goodbye, the daughters to their father. And Gene Kasem, what a mess. But these are just strange deaths. And so that's all I got to say about it. I don't want to say any more. I said enough. Don't drive drunk. Please do not do that. If you feel it's a disease and you can't help it, stop driving. Don't put somebody else in danger. She should have been lucky. She got away with it because now she's gone. And now the family's going to have to pay those bills to repair that house. And anybody else she hit with that car. I still remember that old man that hit people with his car, the outdoor people dining. It's ridiculousness. Anyway, don't drive drunk. That's all I have to say.